Travis, I hate to hit you with some bad news right off the bat, but it's been a tough year for Alabama linebackers. That continues. I actually got a text this morning. You probably did too. I got a text about 7:30, someone tipping me off, but it's not something that I could go with. But then Matt Zenitz just a few minutes ago tweeting out and putting out a story that indeed Dylan Moses has a foot injury. I'm hearing it's a broken foot. He will not be available, obviously, for the Sugar Bowl. Now, they get some linebackers back, but that still doesn't mean you want another guy going out, especially a guy who's gotten better and better every week in Dylan Moses. It's just, I guess all you can say, Travis, just one of those years, right?
It's incredible. And maybe it's just sort of the result of the years of pretty good fortune they've had,
right.
Gary. I mean, when you think about it, you'd have to go back to 2010 when they were last hit with a pretty stout rash of injuries. But this is unlike anything I've seen on one side of the ball, especially. And at one area of that side of the ball, between the outside and inside linebacker positions. It's amazingly mind-numbing in a lot of ways. And, yeah, you think you're getting Mack Wilson back, although, these first couple of 3 days out there, I wouldn't say that he's exactly been cutting it loose coming back from his foot injury.
Right.
So you're thinking that, well, with Wilson back, you've got a three-man rotation inside again that is very formidable to go along with Rashaan Evans and then those two guys. But, with this news of a potential loss of Dylan Moses for the postseason, you're kind of right back where you started from, if not beyond that, because, again, I'm not sure where Mack Wilson really is with his foot.
You're right, Travis. And on Moses, you get him to the point where he's playing quality football. He's past the learning stage a little bit. He was really starting to develop, and then you had all this extra time to get him ready for the Sugar Bowl, and he's out. And you're right on Mack Wilson. So it's a huge setback, and they've had to overcome it all year. But remember, Sean Deion Hamilton's already out. So you're right. This inside linebacking core for this game against Clemson, when you need all hands on deck, is going to be shorthanded again. There's just, like you said, it's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, Keith Holcomb's going to have to step into that third role and give you something. And again, especially if Wilson isn't able to play every down. If he's not to the point where he can play in all the packages, specifically nickel and dime in a game like this with Clemson, you're going to have to roll Keith Holcomb in there some. And, the concern there is that you're talking about the Mike linebacker position. And I think Keith, if you've got a strong Mike to go with him and he can play more of the weak side position, that's more manageable. That fits his skill set sort of better. But when you're asking him to play the Mike and keep Rashaan, more at that weak side position, it becomes an issue potentially. And so, yeah, I mean, it's almost to the point where you're desensitized by it, but it's a big blow again, especially if Wilson doesn't continue to progress to the point where he's able to play every down against Clemson.
Let me ask you this, Travis, and Alabama's got to get ready to play. And, practicing is how you do that. Sometimes physical practices are needed, particularly after a layoff. Yesterday was a full pads practice. But if you're Nick Saban, do you start thinking to yourself, my goodness, we've just got to try to get through the rest of this preparation without losing another linebacker? Do you start treating linebackers differently in practice than you normally would?
It was going to be interesting today anyway, because as he said Friday, the first 2 or 3 days were going to be more of an emphasis on fundamentals. And I think with that, some of the guys that you're trying to bring back, like Minkah Fitzpatrick and Mack, and even a couple of maybe the running backs, their pitch count probably in those first 2 or 3 practices in terms of reps had been lessened a great deal. But today, you sort of figured was going to be the day that you started to see the focus shift entirely towards all-out Clemson prep. So it'll be interesting to see exactly, how much they're able to put on Mack Wilson, and also Terrell Lewis and Christian Miller on the outside, although you got the sense that those guys may have been a little further along than Mac. So you think they'll be okay, but yeah, I mean, the focus now is entirely on Mac Wilson.
Yeah, it really is, and it's unfortunate news, and I hate that I'm having to talk to you about it.
Well, and here's the thing too, Gary. It's not just one game that you're talking about having to get through. If it was a one and done national championship,
yeah, hopefully it's two, right? Yeah,
you're looking at the potential for 2 games against top 4 teams, top 3 teams, with a really tough situation at one of the preeminent positions in the defense.
With that in mind, Travis, and I've discussed Jalen Hurts, and he's been discussed ad nauseum. I still think that he's a good quarterback. I still think that he's a playmaker. But they only scored 14 points against Auburn. And, that's not enough in these big games. So particularly now with all that's happened on defense, Alabama's got a really good defense, but I'm kind of in the camp of everybody else now. I don't think you can go out there and count on holding Clemson, or if you're fortunate enough to win that game, Oklahoma or Georgia, to 17, 19, 20 points. It may be on the offense to have to score more points. That's the way these postseasons have run offensively. I've kind of said in this situation, you do what you got to do to try to win the game, period, whatever that is. Even Nick Saban, who likes continuity and likes consistency, there's no tomorrow. You lose, you're done. With that in mind, right, Travis, offensively, is everything on the table here? Tua playing, 2 backs, making changes offensively to try to get more explosive plays? I mean, do you put everything on the table here and just say, hey, we're going to try to design a game plan to score more points and win this game, period?
Yeah, I'm not sure more is better. I do think that somewhere down that list is Tua. I think you have to have a plan of some sort for him. Probably still in terms of injury potential to Jalen, more so than ineffectiveness or just outright making an in-game change or having something scripted in for Tua. But, yeah, I think from that standpoint, personnel-wise, you need to be in that mode. But I think at times Alabama tries to be too much on offense. I think its personnel is best suited for more 2 backs or, 2 wide receiver set.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a zone read offense with Jalen in there. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think he can be very good in that. But I don't think, this attempt to be 2 or 3 different things is necessarily in their best interest on the offensive side of the ball. And I get that Clemson is very good up front, and I get that you can't be one-dimensional. But you can be diverse within your bread-and-butter scheme. There's different things you can do within that scheme. You don't have to have 3 or 4 different, conceptually different approaches to offense to be effective. So, for me, I felt this way for a long time. I think Jalen is capable of winning a game like this. But if you're going to ask him to be a zone read quarterback on one play and then be a sort of a pocket passer with 3-4 wide receivers on the next, I don't think that suits him best. I don't think they can be what I would say is sort of the Dallas Cowboys comparison right now with Dak Prescott. With Dak, you watch Dallas on offense, and there'll be some zone read with Dak. But then, they can go under center.
Mm-hmm.
They can go under center with him and do some different things.
Travis Reier with some good insight, and I listened very closely to what you just said, and I'm with you 100%. I want to expand on that and ask you this, because you're trying to win games, you're trying to win championships. At the same time, we do know how cognizant Nick Saban is of recruiting and recruiting receivers and wanting not to be labeled a zone read team, still wanting to be labeled a pro-style offense. Do you think that has hurt this particular team? Because, as you said, maybe they've tried to do too many things, and they've tried to keep the perception out there that they're a pro-style offense, especially bringing in Brian Dable in the New England system, and as a result, maybe have limited Jalen's effectiveness and have limited this offense in its potential because they've tried to do too many things all season.
Yeah, ask me again. I know this is a bailout, but ask me again after New Year's night. I think they were able to sort of do what they wanted to do on offense from those different perspectives, and I do believe recruiting plays a role in it. Ultimately, winning the game is first and foremost.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no questioning that. But I don't think there's also any doubt that they would like to maintain a pro element to what they do. I mean, just look at the social media we see from UA football. It translates. How many of these tweets do you see where, guys go onto the National Football League and there's sort of a comparative clip of what they did at UA and then what they did on Sunday? That's a big selling point, as it should be. But what they're best suited for right now on offense, and not just Jalen, but their offensive line too, is a zone read offense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what they're built for at quarterback, and they have the running backs, the tight ends, the aces, and the offensive line. And I understand they have enormous talent at wide receiver. It is a wealth of 6-7 guys, that are all very, very good players. But what you just said earlier is what I've said, and that's it's tournament time. It's one and done now. So, not saying you have to be just, 2 or 3 plays and that's it. But your approach to what you do on offense with the sample size we have with Jalen now, when we have 2 full seasons with Jalen to look at, I don't think it's all that difficult to sort of figure out what they do best with him behind center.
I'm with you. I've been saying the same thing the whole year. Great stuff, Travis. Hey, I want to get your quick opinion on the early signing period, which begins tomorrow. I've been saying, I'm like Saban, since the day it was instituted, I said, this is crap. If you're going to do an early signing period, do it in August. So kids that say, hey, Mom, Dad, I want to focus on my senior season of football, my senior high school can do it. But to do it now with all that's going on with bowl preparation and playoff preparation, coaches trying to get settled and so forth, I'm not a fan of it. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, but at the same time, it's not a really hot-button issue with me. You know what I mean? It doesn't get my pulse up one way or the other. I guess I'm kind of apathetic towards it in that I agree. If you're going to do it, if you're going to have an early period, have an early period. It's nonsensical in terms of the time frame that they've done it. And I totally get the frustration that Nick Saban has with it, between coaching transition on his staff, between getting ready for the college football playoff, and then having to sort of almost be in late January, mid to late January mode in early December to go along with all that on the recruiting trail. I certainly get it. But I guess, I've gotten to the point with Nick Saban where I've seen him adapt and adjust to everything else that's been thrown at him. Every time the goalposts have been moved, Gary, we've seen the guy not only adapt successfully, but sort of make a lot of these situations his own. With hurry up, no huddle, with linemen downfield, RPOs, not being able to go off campus during the spring as the head coach. Maybe I've just taken it for granted in the past that he's been able to adapt and adjust so well that it just doesn't strike a chord with me, other than to be in the sort of majority of people, vast majority of people, who just don't get the time frame that they chose with all this.
All right, before we wrap it up and let you get ready for Southern Fried Sports basketball, tonight in Huntsville in the Rocket City Classic against Mercer, Friday night in Birmingham against Texas. And Brian Passink was on earlier this morning with Wimp and Barry, and I understand Passink's the analyst, and I always err on the side of caution, but he was talking about how big these two games are, how dangerous they are, how good Mercer is. They're 6-5 last time I checked, but Texas was Shaka Smart. But the bottom line is this, Travis, in my opinion. If Alabama's going to get to where it wants to get and be the team it wants to be, they're 7-3 right now. They got to win these two games. Period. End of story. They should beat these two teams on Alabama soil tonight and Friday night. And if they can't win both of them, when you start getting into SEC play, I'm going to be, very disappointed. I mean, to me, I look at these two games and I don't look at, they should win. They got to win them, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think they're very much they're hold serve games, and that they're very important. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But you've got to have them to sort of buoy your resume for the NCAA tournament until you get those shots coming up on the schedule, like Texas A&M, to open conference play on December the 30th. So, especially after dropping the UCF game, if you beat UCF at home, then you've got a little more room for error maybe this week. I think losing that UCF game, it wasn't a resume killer, but I don't think you can have another. You don't want another UCF like a Mercer to go on that resume. So I'm with you. These are games they should win, and I expect them to win. And, best of all, there should be a lot of buzz surrounding these games.
And
man, if you watched Tennessee State last night in Austin, that crowd, that was I've seen better crowds at AAU event than what they had in Austin last night. It was atrocious. So it looks so much smarter, even smarter now, to have this game tonight with Mercer up in Huntsville, because you're going to have a heck of an event up there.
You are. 7,000 plus at the Von Braun Center. It's going to be sold out. Braxton Key should make his season debut tonight. Expect him to play. At what point do you get him into the starting lineup for A&M? I mean, do you or for the Texas game? I mean, he's got to be a starter, right?
I would think so. I don't know if it happens tonight. Maybe it does. I don't think Avery's totally against that type of scenario, seeing as how we've seen him take guys like Sexton and Petty and put them right out there. Now, Key is coming off an injury, but I'm sure they've been cautious with getting him back. And so I've got to think he's ready to go. This isn't maybe as much a ramping up type situation as it might be otherwise. So if he doesn't start tonight, I'm with you. I think Friday night in Birmingham, you see him in that lineup because, again, that following week, it's conference time and it's A&M to get things going. So, he is a difference maker, as we know, in a lot of different areas, but certainly on the offensive end where his versatility can be a really nice complement to what Sexton gives him on the ball.
Terrific stuff today, as always, Travis, and I know you'll continue to discuss Dylan Moses and the impact it'll have on the Alabama defense. What else you got coming up on Southern Fried Sports at 11 a.m.? Yeah,
we'll go around the Bama beat. We'll have Chase Goodbread of NFL.com on to join us. We'll have Hank South talking some early signing period from BOL, and then Anna Hickey, who covers the Clemson Tigers for 247sports.com, will check in with us from South Carolina. So a lot going on coming up at 11 a.m.
Sounds good. I'll be tuned in. Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, Gary.